you are just joining us on Facebook Live, I'm Lauren Van Hamert from RDU on Stage, and I am really excited about tonight's panel. As always, if you have any questions, just type them into the chat on the RDU on Stage Facebook page, and I will get them to our moderator, who is Emily. I hope I pronounce this right, Steinhoff James, who is in the running for RLT's Divas, which is Thursday night. So we'll have to keep our fingers crossed for you, Emily. But and she'll be joined by her husband, Chris, as well. I'm going to turn it over to you, Emily, to introduce our running for RLT. And I will see you guys at the end.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks, Lauren.
So hi, everyone. Welcome.
Hey, Emily.
I'd like to first start by having everyone introduce themselves.
Okay, we'll go. We are Vincent and Julia Drayton. Yep, that's who we are.
And I'm Amanda Bittler-Smith, and I'm currently in the car for work, and my husband, I'll let him introduce himself.
Ken Smith, I'm Amanda's husband.
Great, thank you. This is my husband, Chris.
Hello.
Yes.
So he's going to be joining in as he's able to. We do have our 2-year-old here. And with coronavirus going on, we don't usually have anyone watch him. So so it's a little bit difficult with that. So he'll jump in where he can. So my first question I wanted to ask is, how did you meet and fall in love?
I love that question.
Yay! Why don't you jump in then, Ken, since you love that question?
It's one of my favorite stories to tell about us, because I've been a bachelor forever, and I thought that would be my life. And we were at the Komen Race for the Cure when it was held at Meredith, and WRAL had a tent set up. We were giving away freebies and shaking hands and taking pictures. And Amanda's alum were set up next to ours, maybe a couple of tents away. But Meredith, they were set up there. So she was actually looking for freebies for her classroom when she came over to the WRAL tent. So I looked up, and I promise you, immediately when I looked up, I knew my life was about to change. I don't know how or why, but I looked at her and I thought, I have to see her again. So we started talking about school, and then we figured out we have tennis in common. Then she said, "Oh yeah, I've been to Wimbledon several times," and I'm like, "Oh my God, you've been to Wimbledon," and that was it. So I thought, I have got to see her again. But the thing is, to be honest, I was such a scoundrel at the time. I gave her my work number. But as I looked at her, and I literally watched her go back to the Meredith tent, and I watched her leave. I watched her all the way out as she left the park, and I thought, I've got to give her a call and give her my personal number because I absolutely need to see her again. So that's how we met.
That is so sweet.
That's great.
You all want to jump in?
So we met, and I kind of gave Lauren a snippet the last time we spoke. I was dating someone in 2002, and Vincent was the caretaker of the building that the guy I was dating lived in.
Where were we at?
In Asheville. I'm sorry, in Asheville.
Backdrop.
And we split up. The guy and I split up, but I had a twisted head at the time, and I think it was due to him, but I felt the need to go and check on him. And Vincent stops me one day, and he said, "Why do you keep going upstairs?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." I said, it's my head right now. And he told me then, he said, "Well, if you ever want to stop going upstairs, I'm here."
Oh!
Yeah, so that's how we met. We talked for a little while. I took him on his first hiking trip in Boone up at Linville Falls, and we've just kind of been together ever since.
Oh.
That's what she slipped me a Mickey up on that mountain. When we went high, she slipped me a Mickey.
Drugged him, but I got. We'll be celebrating 16 years a week from tomorrow, if as long as he does well.
Hey.
Oh, yeah.
Happy early anniversary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Sweetheart, would you like to tell the story of how we met?
Well, I would actually see Emily. I would go. There's a local watering hole I would go to pretty often, and it's not a respectable place. It's not a really nice place to go necessarily, but Emily would show up in there, and I felt like she was like the only thing in there I even wanted to talk to.
Oh,
But she was dating somebody, so it was kind of difficult to talk to her. But I'd find an opportunity every now and then, and we would find every time we went in there, we would end up together talking, and we couldn't stop talking. You know,
The very first time we met, my sister actually introduced
well,
us.
that's true. That's true. She set it up, and I actually.
No,
that's
this
funny.
is funny.
That's
Mhm.
funny because I knew all I knew about her is that she went to UNC and was had gone for law school, and all I could think to myself, oh, she's gonna be one of those snobby UNC whatever lawyers, you know. I don't know if I want to meet her or not, but I waited around. It took her a while to get there, and so I finally she came up, and I saw, well, she's really pretty, and we'll talk. And so I talked for a little bit, and I was still feeling like, you know, I just need to push this away and get this over with at first, because I thought the whole snob thing was going to come out, but it didn't. And it turned out we ended up talking till 4:35 in the morning.
wow.
She went home, and I called her, and we talked to each other laying in bed until the sun came up.
Wow.
Oh.
Love
Yeah,
that.
that was
So yeah, so I kind of rushed ahead. Actually, then after that, we would try to see each other in this little watering hole every now and then as we could, you know. But, like I said, I would go in there. There was nobody in there I wanted to talk to. So and
exactly.
and she would go and she would actually call me if she would happen to be up there, because she was bored to death and didn't want to talk to anybody there either.
Well, my little sister her ex-husband now, but at the time her husband would play in this band, and so they would beg me to go, and I would be sitting there like, oh my goodness, there's just no one interesting to talk to. So I would call Chris and say, will you please come to the White Oak? And
Oh,
so that's our story.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, did you talk about race when you first started dating?
Ooh, good question.
Uh,
For Julia and I, no, we didn't. Our story is so strange. It's like, it's really strange. We didn't talk about race.
We talked more about the age difference than we did race.
Yeah.
That was a bigger issue with us.
Yeah.
You know, that we've got 14 years between us, so it was like, you know, and here I was coming in at 22, 23 with 2 kids, and he was just that single guy that shopped at Banana Republic and Wilson Leather, and bachelor with no kids and no ties, and here kids and a budget. So yeah.
Okay. What about you,
Yeah,
Ken and
we
Amanda?
didn't talk about race, and similar to the others, our age difference was really what we not even focused on. But that was more of a focus than our race, really.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, I don't think it ever came up as we were dating, as we started getting close. I met her family. I've been so fortunate that our family has just embraced us, and so the fact that we were coming from different races, different cultures, actually was, I think, the beauty of our relationship, because it just melds these two together, and we have an opportunity to share in each other's culture. And being from the Caribbean, it was amazing for me to take her to St. Thomas a few months before we got married, so she could meet the rest of my family because I didn't want them to meet her first at the wedding. So
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of relatives.
Right.
So it was great for me to take her home and just see my family interact with her and how much they embraced her, and it was it was a really memorable trip, and I knew that we were in business.
Awesome.
That's great.
And although I think, like Ken said, although we're blended, he always compared himself to George Clooney. He said, I'm kind of like George.
Okay.
Oh no, we lost him. And so, but and then when we went home, it was just I was embraced right away. So
Great.
And the funny thing is, when we went on what was supposedly our first date, she didn't know it was a date. I knew it was a date because we had tennis in common. So I was never off on a Wednesday. But this particular week, I just happened to be off on a Wednesday, and I thought, that's a sign. I'm totally asking her to go play tennis and then go have something to eat afterwards.
Sounds good.
So we joke about it now because she thought, I'm just going to go play tennis with this guy I just met. Seems like a nice guy. I knew that, this is a date, and I'm not letting her go.
Exactly, because I, for the first while, called him Mr. Smith. Because I knew he was older than me. So being from the South, that was ingrained. Like, you have to say Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so. And he was like, no, please, stop, call again.
So, how about you, Vincent and Julia?
I was like, I'm trying to get with you. So don't call me Mr. Smith.
It's pretty much for us when we went out for, I used to play softball. I played softball until I was in my late 30s. And when Julia and I met, I don't know what she was used to, whatever. So after a game one night, I said, come on, let's go have dinner. So
McDonald's,
she was King. I said, no, we're going to Outback. She was like, Outback? Like, really? Like, you going to pay? I'm like, yeah, I got you. So finish playing softball, hard day work, go play softball. And the funniest thing, we talk about this all the time, is like that. What did you do with the ketchup?
I ordered food, and whenever the food came, the ketchup was in glass bottles. And whenever you're at the table, you got to shake the ketchup so it'll come out good. Whenever. And I failed to check the lid, and I was wearing a white T-shirt. This is our very first day.
Oh no.
All over me. I'm asking the guy, I'm like, do y'all have any shirts in the back? He was like, yeah, we do, but they got grease all over them. I'm like, yeah. So yeah, I thought for sure that was just the end of it. He was never going to want to see me again with ketchup all over my shirt. But
that's funny.
He stuck around, and he tells everybody about it.
Yeah, that was
great. So were your families supportive of your relationship as well?
Her family was, I guess, because, oh my goodness. Okay.
My family was supportive because
I don't want to get too deep with it.
Because I never dated white. I mean, that's just what it was. I always dated black men. So my family was just like, oh, okay, here we go. Here's another one. Vincent's family, I think it was a little bit different. They were supportive of him and his choices. But there again, here was this 14 years younger white girl with 2 kids that he was bringing into his life. So I think that they were, in the beginning, a little standoffish. I tell that his dad, his sister Glenda, and his sister Pat were all welcoming immediately. But you got to think there were 3 other sisters and another brother at the time who just kind of looked and went, okay. Yeah. And his mother was.
Mom was sick. She was sick.
Yeah, but she was accepting, but not. She was standoffish a little bit. Okay. But
my dad was more accepting at that time than some family members. And but I have to tell this story. I tell it all the time. I'm not, but meeting her mom and her brothers, okay, that's cool. But when you go into the grandparents
Nice.
and you meet the grandparents, you like, okay,
These white
so
grandparents.
these are white grandparents. I met her grandfather. I tell this story that he was sick at the time. He couldn't speak, but a man knows a man. And when Julia introduced me to him, he didn't say a word because he was sick. But he raised up out of his recliner. He looked at me right in my eye and he gave me the firmest handshake and nodded his head like, okay, this is the guy. This is the guy. And her grandmother to this day loves me to death. And I love her also. Because she will call me, where's that Vincent? What is he doing? And meeting her grandparents, that's like another level for me. Her mom and I are cool, her brothers, and it was her grandfather.
Yeah.
That was like a milestone for me, if you will, because he shook my hand, looked me in my eye, and he nodded his head like, okay.
And my grandfather, you got to imagine, my grandfather was not a small man.
No,
he was about 6'3", 6'4".
And we talking mountains.
His hands, he wore a size 16 on his ring finger, so he was a big man. But he had suffered strokes and heart attacks, and it had gotten him to the point later on in his life where he couldn't really walk real well, couldn't talk at all. But yeah, his handshake still meant everything, and he always told it. A handshake that's 1,000 words right there.
Confirmation for me.
Yeah.
So I've got another question. How did you feel the first time, if ever, that your partner had to deal with a discriminatory or racist behavior? And this is directed to the white partners. How did you feel the first time that you kind of realized, it's not always easy from that perspective, from their perspective?
As far as Vincent, it was never in my head that discrimination didn't exist. So I actually think that I was more aware of it, but I was more used to it.
Gotcha.
But when Vincent and I started dating, he had never really, he had seen women outside of his race or whatever, but to have a serious relationship with someone who was white was different for him. But it wasn't for me. So where I was used to it and we would go out to the mall while we were in Asheville, I was the type, I wanted to hold hands, but I could see, with him, there was this discomfort in the beginning. And it was just like, okay, I've got to let him kind of feel his way into this because, we've gotten looks. We've been together for 18 years. We've gotten looks from, what? Shut up. 18. We've gotten the looks from both sides. We've gotten the looks from the old white men who don't want to see us together to the younger black women who are like, you're taken from our race. And I get all that. I get it. I understand. But, I really had to let him kind of feel his way into it and feel his way through those looks and those stares. And I really couldn't push him to feel the comfort level that I was at.
Gotcha. How about you, Amanda and Ken?
I know. I think a lot of what Julia said kind of resonated with me. One of the things most recently was that, and it's all been since everything this summer kind of, is that one of Ken's colleagues said, well, I don't see color. And so it really made me think because I said, gosh, is that something? Because I was like, I don't think I looked when we met and was like, oh gosh, you're a Black man. Like, I don't think that was the first thought that I had. But Ken kind of explained it. He just said, well, you have to realize kind of the hardships that his culture has come through in our history. And if you don't see color, then you're not gonna think all of the hardships that his people and that he endures almost on a daily basis. I know when we were dating, he was sent to Charlotte to cover some of the riots there, and I was going, why are they sending you? They could send somebody else in the newsroom, surely somebody who's not a target they could send, because I just felt like, okay, your work is putting you in danger. But luckily he's still with us today. But I think it was kind of, it's in those moments that I'm forced to kind of see, because to me that wasn't something in a relationship that I had a wall up against. I hadn't dated Black men like Julia had, and so for me that was something new, and I think a new thing to my family. But I don't think they put up walls or were not in support of us. The biggest thing, like Ken said earlier, was kind of the age difference that they looked at.
Right. How about you, Chris? Do you have anything to?
Well, I'll kind of answer the last two questions a little bit, because you asked if we talked about color. We didn't. I met Emily and I liked Emily, so I didn't really think about it at all until further down the line and the family got involved. And honestly, there's I grew up in the 60s, so that was sort of a trying time for races, and so a lot's happened, and I've grown a lot since back then. A lot of my family members have grown, but you grow up influenced by your peers or the people around you in your family, and you realize that some family members don't make the smartest statements. And it gets embarrassing after a while if they don't grow like I did. I went to school, I got immersed in a lot of different cultures. I traveled the world. I realized a lot of things, and one of them is that color has nothing to do whether somebody likes somebody or not. Oh, you got a turn coming up.
Somebody's driving.
Yeah. Luckily, it's not me.
But I will say, probably the first time I really even thought about color was when we were going to my grandparents' farm. My grandparents were long deceased, but all of my aunts and uncles, which is like 9 of them on one side of my family, and all their kids were going to be there. It's going to be a lot of people. And when I walked in that room, I immediately, all of a sudden, it popped in my head from probably 20 years ago, all the stupid comments that one of these people had made that was very probably racist sounding. I mean, it's like all of that replayed in my head. And I kind of came a little paranoid about things staying respectful to Emily. I didn't care what anybody else thought, but I did care about what they said around Emily, so. And it actually went well. Yeah. Everybody's very respectful, but it just made me really think about my family's past and how some of them had acted and had they grown, because I haven't really had that conversation with them. So that's where really I think I came in, where that really made me think about it.
All righty. So my next question, lost my place here. This one is for Vincent and Julia. I wanted to hear about, I would like you to talk to me about your family, raising kids, school system in the current climate with the Black Lives Matter movement. I know you all have children. How is that for you? How do you navigate that?
Well, we have 3. So we have Jonathan. Jonathan is 22. He'll be 23 in January. Excuse me. We have Jasmine. She will be 21 in September. And we have Asia. Asia is 17. She is a rising senior at Apex High School. So when I first met Vincent, like I said, I came in with 2 children. Jonathan was 4 at the time, Jasmine was 2. And they had not had a steady male influence in their life. You know, their biological father was absent, extremely absent.
Extremely.
And when you know, when I met Vincent, I think for the first time, my relationship with Vincent was different than any other, because I think I was finally at a point where I put my children first. And I said, you know, I'm going to date him. I'm going to see what he's like, but I'm not bringing the kids around immediately. I don't want them to be put through that again. So it was a good month of us dating before I really brought the kids around him. And they fell in love with him. You know, he fell in love with them. They fell in love with him. And it was, Vincent was cooking us dinner one night.
Can I tell the story?
Yeah, please. Go ahead.
It was like, Julia, of course, like I said, she had 2 kids and I was single, you know. So, long story short, I'm a caretaker of an apartment building in Asheville. So I'm frying chicken. I'm frying. I knew she was coming over. I don't think I had a game that night. But anyway, you know when some kids ain't got home training, if you will. I'm raised old school. I'm the old school guy. So when mommy's cooking, you stay out of the kitchen until it's time to eat. So Jonathan comes in. He snatched a leg off the plate. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, dude, what are you doing? So when I told Julia right then, I said, if we're going to be together, I'm going to treat those kids like they are mine. You're going to have discipline, and you're going to be respectful. You're going to be mindful. You're going to do what you're not going to come into my household and wreak havoc. Mm-hmm. But it was hilarious. He said, I was like, this dude just come in, just snatched the chicken off the plate like it was okay. And like I said, she was young at this time. She was a young mother. I get that. I get it. You know, but I knew right then that I wanted to be with her. So with these 2 kids, it's like, I have to embrace them. And I have to treat them and encourage them and love them like they were my own. And to this day, they are 22 and 20 years old. And it was like, I'm dad. Mm-hmm. I'm daddy.
Yeah.
And, you know, it hasn't been easy. Trust and believe. It has not. Because, like I said, I was raised in a different era than she was. Mm-hmm. You know, I was born in the 60s, 70s. It's like, so, you know, mom and dad made sure that we did what kids were supposed to do, you know. But it's been great. I look back and I do not regret not one single moment of this day with my kids.
Yeah.
I'm daddy.
Yeah.
So how do you guys navigate conversations with the children about race?
You dig in. I mean, there's no, you can't sugarfoot it. You know, you can't sit there. You know. It's our children have been told from a young age, you know, you pay attention to your surroundings. Jonathan, we always made sure, because he was, of course, being the boy, he was always out, he was running and hanging out with his friends. And, you know, we made sure that he knew, okay, so if you're walking, if you're in a car, regardless of what it is, you get pulled over, you better make sure you got that ID in your wallet. You know, you don't have anything illegal on you. Yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You know, keep your hands visible, no hands in your pockets, you know, do what you're told, comply, which of course we see today, even complying doesn't keep you alive. But there's no way around that. I think if you are light about that conversation, then that conversation has no meaning. You know, it's going to go in one ear and out the other. But when you can sit down and you can be open and honest with your children and say, this is what's happening in the world today. You have got to follow these steps that we're laying out for you, and you've got to be mindful and pay attention to your surroundings and everything around you. And it's a, okay, if you're going out, call me when you get there, call me when you get back home, let me know you're good, let me know you're in the house, so it's, you have to be open and honest, especially with the kids today. I mean, our kids, and we were in Charlotte this past weekend with our friends, and we all agreed, it's amazing with this generation how they are just so ready to protest, and they're so ready to get out there and just be active, but in the same token, they're naive in the same token, in that their minds are, everybody is awesome, and they're not.
I don't think all of them are naive. I think now with social media, with everything that's going on, kids know. Even with our 17-year-old, and she knows what's going on. She saw and heard, and with everything going on with the George Floyd and so many others, Trayvon Martin, and the list goes on. It's like, and then you're dealing with biracial kids,
Right.
and then it's like,
they
like, what do we do?
Yeah,
because they are like,
we're, I know Asia, our 17-year-old, has said so many times, she can be around her white friends and she's not white enough, and she can be around her black friends and she's not black enough, and it's,
I can 100% relate to that. I completely understand how she feels.
Yeah. So, she was, whenever all the protests began after George Floyd's murder, she was stuck. She was, kind of in a place where she didn't know where she fit in or what she could do or how she could play her part in it without being looked at, like you're not even black, so. But when I took her to the protest march downtown, and she took her camera with her, and I saw her face light up, and she started taking pictures of everybody and the protesting, and she started participating in the protesting.
And those were beautiful pictures.
Thank you. And I knew that night she was like, okay, I know my part. I know what I can do to participate and to be among those who are advocating for justice.
Great.
And I've always told our kids, you have the best of both worlds. Oh, you have the best of both worlds. And that's very important. And I see them treating people, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, they treat them all as people. They treat them as their friends, their people, they're equal.
Yeah.
And I think we did good on that part.
Yeah. We did good there.
I think we did good on that part, if nothing else.
I'd like to turn our attention here to a question I have for Ken. How has the Black Lives Matter movement and recent tragic murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, as you said, the list goes on and on, informed your covering these issues as a Black reporter?
That's a really good question, because when all this started happening, my colleagues and I, many of whom are African American, we thought there's a perspective that we bring to the table as African Americans, because while people are protesting experiences that we've had,
talk louder,
in that regard, we have to make sure that our own feelings can have to be put aside as we cover these stories moving forward. And I think what is really done, it's really given my newsroom an opportunity to really look at ourselves and determine whether or not we've been perpetuating the same systemic racism within our newsroom. And as far as covering these stories, as a journalist, you bring your integrity to the table, and you have to cover these stories with integrity and not put your own spin on any particular story. But for us, I think what it has done, it is giving us an opportunity in that newsroom to really focus on how we can be more inclusive and how we can create a more diverse culture within our newsroom. And interestingly enough, we started a diversity group in our newsroom, and that was unheard of a year ago. But because of what happened with George Floyd and this sea change that we're experiencing, that diversity group of which I'm a part of, we started it, and it was great to be in that situation where you're teaching other people about your culture, recognizing what's happening, and even to see hear some of my white colleagues say, "Wow, I didn't see it that way, and now I do." So it's really opened up a dialogue for people of all races to really start talking and learning more about each other, because I think ignorance goes a long way in perpetuating systemic racism. And I think when we learn a lot from each other, and that's what, as a journalist, what I really focus on is learning as much as I can about how this system was created, why it was created, and how we can be part of the solution to make a difference for our children, especially.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Amanda had said earlier that she was a little afraid for you as you're covering these stories. And I was curious, Amanda and Ken, how you guys navigate that together as a couple, and how you have conversations as a couple to address that and try to work your way through those issues. Because I'm sure it is scary for her and for you at sometimes as you're covering these protests.
Yeah, she mentioned the Charlotte riots, and I think looking back, that was the most concerned I've ever been on a story, because it was similar to the riots here that we experienced in Raleigh, in that it doesn't matter who you were, when that tear gas starts flowing, everybody's going to become brought up in it. And actually, there was a shooting just yards from where I was in terms of covering the story. So that was the most I've ever felt uncomfortable covering a story.
And I was gonna say, I was on the phone with you when that tear gas was shot, because it was like 11:45 at night. I was in Baltimore getting my master's, and so I was like, my bedtime is midnight, so if I haven't heard from you, I'm gonna call. And he was like talking, and he was like, "Oh, honey, I gotta go. Tear gas was just thrown." And I just remember being like, "Wait, now I can't go to sleep. Like, I'm really worried, and I'm 5 hours away from him." And so I remember I felt very helpless. That I couldn't do anything. And we weren't dating, but he's gone to Afghanistan, even with troops, to cover stories over there. So to hear that what we're experiencing now is some of the toughest things he's covered is really just, it's really hard. So it's nice when we come home and I can see him, and at the end of the day and put my hands on him, because then I'm like, okay, you're home, you're okay, good. But until then, it's like, I don't know where he is sometimes.
And one of
Sorry,
the
honey,
things
you
I
can
try to do, especially, I always try to reassure her that I'm okay, and I try not to, even if the situation is dire, like it was in Charlotte, I try not to make it seem that I'm fearful, because this is what I do, and the adrenaline is rushing, and you're in the trenches, so to speak. But it's important for me to always reassure her that wherever I'm going, whatever I'm doing, that there's a safety protocol in place that we always follow to make sure that we can come home to our loved ones.
As interracial couples, have conversations about race and privilege always been a part of your lives, or do you guys feel like the current protests and the Black Lives Matter movement has sparked any recent conversations between you as a couple?
I think I think it's definitely started some new conversations. It's like I said, having kids, you're kind of forced to have those conversations anyway. But the conversations between he and I have changed a little bit because there's a new dynamic. And we've talked about I've always had a fear anytime he left the house, anytime that he was going out or going to work, which he doesn't have a dangerous job. He paints. It's not dangerous.
Dangerous?
No. But but there's a certain fear that when my children leave the house, when my husband leaves the house, I want to make sure that they're coming back okay every day. But this new dynamic with the protests, and I've had, for the first time in my life, I actually was looked at as being the racist one, and which I'm not, but it was just like I was seen that way because I was just a white person out there, so now I don't feel comfortable without him next to me or without one of my kids with me. But in the same token, I don't feel comfortable completely being out with him, because what if somebody pulls up next to us and they don't like the fact that there's a mixed couple in the car, and I'm gonna, I don't like that. I got my gun right here next to me. So the whole dynamic has changed. It really has. And it's a time that we've never seen before. And to be fearful, not only for his safety, but for my safety now too, is completely new to me. So we've had a few conversations about that, and making sure, sharing our fears with each other, the new ones and the old ones.
And I so now more than ever, because I carry, I open carry. I do. I open carry. And with the way things are, it's like, I don't know. I'd rather be safe than sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Even in my own home, living in a mixed community, it's like, because we sit out in the mornings on the porch, we have our coffee, we talk and whatever, and people ride by, they walk by, and it's like, you
just never know.
You just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Even like she said, going to the store and getting the stares, and it's like, I'm not gonna play any games with you. I'm not, because if you hurt my wife, it's gonna be a different ballgame. That's just for me. I mean, and because this is my wife, I gotta protect her and my family first and foremost. And I just, things have changed. Everything, this universe has changed.
Yeah.
And so we love going downtown. We love going out and having dinner and whatever, seeing friends without being harassed or being frowned upon. I don't care. You can frown upon. You can say what you want to, but don't come this way. You say what you want to say. Don't come this way. Don't do it. So that's just, I mean.
Okay. What about you, Amanda, Ken?
We have been the conversation is really focused on the children that we want to have, and we're hoping to start our family. And I find that lately we've had a lot of conversations about what that could be like for our children, because, like Vincent said, they will have the best of both worlds, but that world sometimes, as you well know, Emily, can be really confusing.
Yeah.
Interracial children, and we have to, as parents, be such advocates for our children moving forward. So really, our conversations have been about what our family dynamics will look like, and the kind of parents that we have to be in this new climate that we're in.
Totally understand that. I am biracial, but I identify as an African American woman, and I think you're absolutely right. When you're thinking about the children, I don't think you can be in an interracial relationship without thinking about that. It's always at the forefront of your mind. And with Chris and I having Miles, we also think about that and worry about that, particularly as he gets older.
Yep.
And actually, before he was born, we worried. I didn't know. I said to my husband, because he hadn't really thought about it, as he told you, he doesn't think about race that much. And I said to him, Chris, at some point we might have to have a conversation with Miles about that you had with your son about, cooperate with the police, comply, don't put your hands where they can't see them, And we were just very fearful of that. So, you know, you have all these thoughts as a parent wanting to protect your child. And even before you have children, as an interracial couple, you're already having these conversations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The other day, I heard an interview with the actor Joshua Jackson. You remember him from Dawson's Creek or
Hamilton.
Little Fires Everywhere. And he recently married a sister. And they asked him about the current climate. And he said, you know, before I met my wife and fell in love, I didn't really think about it. But now that we have a little boy who is biracial and he would be looked at differently, he said that's something that he really thinks about. And that resonated with me because Amanda and I had that conversation that's like 2 or 3 days before that.
So Vincent and Julia, I had another question. I know you were involved in Escape to Freedom. It was an immersive historical play at the Mordecai House, I believe.
Yep.
And I wondered if you could tell us more about that experience.
So, Escape to Freedom at the historic Mordecai Park. Escape to Freedom is an immersive theater experience. What it does is it takes the audience through the life and snippets of the lives of slaves. So the audience begins the show on the ship, and they begin there. They go to the auction block, and they are sold off to different slave owners. And we purposely separate families so that husbands and wives are separated, children are separated from their families. They are then taken through the grounds and they are put to work. They fold laundry, they shine silver, they shuck corn, they wash potatoes. I mean, they literally go through everything, but they are at the end of it. Why the show is called Escape to Freedom is because they're given the option now, and this is the thing, is that each audience member is given the choice as to whether or not they're going to escape.
And everybody don't escape.
Not everybody escapes.
Wow.
Some slaves were used to staying on the plantation where they had it good, so to speak, and didn't. It's emotional.
Yeah.
And some people that we know can't do it anymore because
they loved
like,
it.
If you and your wife came, it's like
we're separated.
You separated. You're not allowed to talk. You're not allowed to see. You're not allowed to speak with them. And I found last year, for first time, I've been doing it for 5 years. I've been doing this for a couple of years, 5 years. And so last year, it was really, we had this, she was a white lady and she had a daughter. She was probably 11 years old. Her daughter was sold to a different slave owner. Of course, the mom was too. And mom was hysterical. The daughter was fine because when I'm in character, it's like I'm in character. Mm-hmm. But that time last year, it was so different. It was like I had to come out of character. I had to go meet where they were. Mm-hmm. Told them who I was and the character that I was playing. And they was like, I was not expecting this. I didn't know. It's like, you go into like history books don't treat you, they don't teach you this. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They don't teach you that, you know, the daughter's taken away from the mom is taken away from the husband and blah, blah, blah. And so on, you know, and I had to come out of character and sit down. I was like, this is just a tip of the iceberg. This is not even nowhere near to what people of color, Black people experience. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I want to retire. I told my joy, I was like, you know what, I'm gonna retire from doing it. But now, the way things are going in this history, we still need to have our history. Mm-hmm. You cannot erase history. It's like the Old Testament and the New Testament. You can't have the new without the old.
Yeah.
you know, but Escape to Freedom is like,
But it also,
yeah,
if anyone was taught, which I'm not sure that everyone was back
she was
in
in the big house.
back in the
In the big
they can
house.
figure that one out.
Uh-oh.
In the 1920s, during the Great Depression, you had journalists who were unemployed. Henceforth came the WPA slave narratives. So they sent these journalists all through the South to interview former slaves about their time on the plantation, to basically to give them work. It was just to employ those out of work journalists, but that's where everything on during with Escape to Freedom is derived from. So every character that you meet is based
true.
on a real person.
That was here in North Carolina.
Yeah, so you don't meet one who didn't exist.
Yeah.
So, and of course, Vincent plays a gentleman named Handy, who was, if you've seen Django, he is
Master's favorite.
he is Samuel L. Jackson's character.
Yeah, okay, I'll take that.
He plays that favorite slave, that hard-working Macedon dude. You know, he don't do no wrong. I, of course, am in the big house. I play the missus of the plantation, which is it's a chore to say the least to play that woman. But you know, after 5 years and now getting ready to go on 6, because yeah, if it even happens this year, I don't know that it will. But if it does, then you know we'll be back on the plantation again. Asia does it with us. She's one of the slave children. So you know you have to think on plantations when you had slaves, they weren't all rich dark black, you know, because you had the what they call the high yellow.
We've got a special place for you,
and you had
light-skinned women.
You had you know, the master would impregnate many women on the plantation, so you had a bunch of biracial children. So we've got a wide array of different colors that come through and that play in the play itself. So yeah, it's a good play. It really is. And if you ever get the chance, if you just want to see it one time, because one time may be enough, but everybody needs to, because what we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat. So.
Emily, get off the air because you know we can go there all night long.
No, that's all right. That was really great. I was really glad to talk about that. I wanted to ask you a question, Chris. Can you talk about how you viewed race as a young person? You know, later, you know, more college age, and then you know, move on into after we got married.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, like I grew up in the 60s, and so there was segregation was going on. That was a big thing that was happening with schools then. And, you know, back then on the school bus, it was very separate. Whites were sitting in one area, whites were sitting on the other side. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
okay.
You're good.
So, you know, things felt very separate back in the 60s, I thought. And then in the 70s, I thought it was already making good strides because I didn't think at the time desegregation was a good thing. I didn't think it was a bad thing, but I just didn't understand why they were pushing people all over the place. But then once it happened, and especially now, I realized how much that allowed my generation at that time to grow, to be experienced and immersed with other cultures, not just black and white, but other cultures too. So I would say from a little child, all I had to be exposed to, and honestly, my family, when I was little, we were not social with any black families as far as I knew, you know. So as I grew up, to have more of that was just enlightening and educational all the way around. And in college, it just, you know, that continued. So you really grow as a person, I think, with all of that. Unfortunately, a lot of our nation did not grow in that way. But there's hope, you know. I mean, I can see that a lot has happened, but right today, it feels like we've fallen backwards or something. So it's a little frustrating.
Amanda, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? Or Anyone else have thoughts on just your experiences over time?
I think I'm a lot with Chris, but he grew up a little before I did. But I think the school I went to was pretty diverse, and I think for me it was never like you can't be friends with like people that don't look like you, and so I had like friends that were all sorts of races, and so I think it wasn't necessarily to me like I can't be friends with you. There were no walls. And I was also somebody like, I think even now I'll talk to an inanimate object probably. Like my friends are like, you just talk to anybody. You can always find something to talk about. So like when Joya and Vincent were talking theater, I automatically went to a show that Ken and I saw in London called Octoroon, which is about a plantation owner, but it has very specific like not stereotyping, but it has very specific actors that have to play each part. And it was eye-opening for Ken and I to see it at the National in London. And so I love, and then like Ken said, tennis, but it's just like we all have different facets that I think tie us together. And then when I met Ken, I was just, as I said earlier, he was Mr. Smith to me. So I think it became something that to me wasn't on the forefront, but like we've all kind of mentioned, it needs to be, because we have to have these conversations with our kids. And Ken and we're lucky he has a son from his college girlfriend, and he's married with two boys, and so they're just like, what do we do with our kids, because they're 7 and 3. So they're already thinking about these conversations they're going to be having, and I'm going, okay, great. Like kind of like Vincent and Joya said, it's the best of both worlds, but at the same time it can be kind of a double-edged sword. So right. I'm trying to pick what they're thinking they're going to tell their kids without sugarcoating it, and go, okay, what can I glean from them and tell our kids one day as well.
Right. Did you guys want to add anything? I know Vincent, and you were, I don't know how old you are, Julie. I know you guys said there was an age difference here, so.
Yep. So I'm 41. I'll be 42 in October.
You're my age.
Yay! And then Vincent.
So you and we're kind of in the middle, because I feel like we're not that super young generation, but we're not that end generation either.
Yeah. We're that Generation X.
I'm not going to say old, but that, yeah. We're a generation of.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Matthew just turned 56, so there's the 14 years there. But yeah, it's different with me, I guess, because whenever I was growing up, I used to tell people I grew up in the very first project in Asheville. So I was surrounded by Black people growing up, and it was never a second thought. My father used to have all of his friends over at the house, and they'd be drinking and talking motorcycles and whatever else they were doing, but it was just there was never a thought about the difference in color. And I will say this, I don't necessarily like people saying that they are colorblind or they don't see color, because that's a lie. Everyone sees color.
See color.
Whenever I look at Vincent, the first thing I thought in my head was, that is a fine Black man, because he's Black, so.
All day.
But so I'm definitely not colorblind, but in the same token, there's no difference. Blood is blood. We are the human race. Black people got some more melanin than we got, and that's cool. Wish I could have a little bit more. But
keep you from sunburning as much, right?
Yeah, I would like to have a nice tan during the summer, but some reason that doesn't happen.
You can't even see me now.
Chris and I go to the beach, and he gets his
you can't even see me now. It's getting dark. Somebody cut the spotlight on.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Really?
Or just cut the lights on. These lights.
See?
Sorry.
It's dark right now.
Julia, I understand what you mean. We were at the beach with my family, and I was getting out of the shower, and Ken goes, "Honey, why are you so white?"
Yeah, we're,
well, sometimes when Chris doesn't wear sunblock, I say to him, and I say, honey, in case you didn't realize, you're white.
Yep.
Well, you're gonna burn.
I'll give you some on that one because I actually had turn those on. I had surgery in 2018. I had skin cancer, so I had surgery. I've got this huge 9-inch scar on the back of my leg. So God, please wear your sunblock, guys. I know we're white and we want a little bit more color, but it's just not worth it for that sun.
Right.
So, but yeah, it's we grew up in different times, and like Emily, like you said, we're part of that Generation X, that generation that grew up without computers, but then gained computers at an earlier age. So it's like we're aware of playing outside until the street light comes on, but we're also aware of I want to stay on the computer because the internet is finally up. Right. So it's
crossover.
It's a good generation to be in. But yeah, as far as color, I mean, color is color. I see it everywhere, but I love it all. That we're all just different shades, and I absolutely love it.
But not to change the subject, but I was kind of hoping you were going to ask. But one of the questions that I get all the time is like, why did you marry a white woman? I get that question.
I would love for you to answer that question, Vincent.
I know.
I wish I would have thought of that question, but I would love for you to answer it.
It's like we've been talking about race and color and this, that, and the third. I have 6 older black sisters. My mother was a black woman. My father was a black man. I'm going to be honest with you. This is my second marriage. Mm-hmm. My first marriage was a black woman. So trust and believe. I love my sisters. Don't get it twisted. I love people. This woman here, Julia, I fell in love with. I wasn't looking for her. She wasn't looking for me. Our paths crossed. We talked. We had a conversation. I saw something in her, and she saw something in me. It's like, why did you marry that? Because this is the woman that I fell in love with. Mm-hmm. Exactly. We weren't looking. I was not for me. I was not looking for a white woman to date or to marry. This is a woman's like, wow, she had 2 beautiful kids. And I saw her. It was like, if you will, let's kick it as a young folk. Let's chop it up. And by the grace of God, the 12th of this month, it'll be 16 years that we've been married, 18 years that we've been together. Wonderful. And she has my back. And I have heard. When she's wrong, she's wrong. When I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But when she's right, she's right. When I'm right, I'm right. We call each other on our stuff, if you will. But color has nothing to do with it. And that's with any relationship. Any. I think as a people, my relationship, we miss out on so much because the negativity that's been going on forever and ever. It's like when she took me hiking, I had some friends like, what? You going hiking? You black man, you don't go hiking? I was like, it sounds funny, but that's what the conversation was. Mm-hmm. But we miss out on God's beauty so much every single day because of, what's the word I want to be nice. Because of BS. Mm-hmm. Because we don't know. You're not going to go hiking. You're not going to go on a trail just to see the waterfalls and listen to the birds. It's just, but I fell in love with her. I wasn't looking to fall in love with a white woman, but I did. And I'm so glad that I met her. Oh. You know,
Shabby.
and see, but I got we but anyway, but she is like a joy for me. She's a breath of fresh air. A lot of times, people we miss out on because our tradition
Biases.
or yeah, go ahead, Emily. It's
Superficial stuff that doesn't matter.
It really is.
absolutely, absolutely every single day, and then people are being abused and hurt. But I'm gonna say, man, he's black, he's this, she's that, she's white, she's fall in love. Find somebody that you love and find somebody that love you
Unconditional.
unconditionally. Love you, not hurt you.
Yeah.
Love you.
Yeah. Because that's one thing I can say with our relationship is I don't think it was we told each other we loved each other in an earlier stage in our relationship, but I can honestly sit and say I unconditionally love him. There is absolutely nothing that I would not do for my husband. I would lay down my life for him. You know, and I'm sorry, but I'm gonna keep it a little biblical. He comes before my children now. You know, my children are grown. They're out of the house except for one, and she only got a year left, and she's got to go. But this one right here this is my rock. This is everything in my world. So whenever he decides he's leaving me, what am I doing? I'm packing a bag because I'm going too. So.
So, is there any other questions that I did not ask that someone wished I would have asked?
That's a tough question.
No.
I want to ask Mr. Ken, Mr. Smith one.
Okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
I you professionally you have to be on top of your game. I get it. But when you run across the story, I've always wanted to know when you run across a story and you know where he go. He went.
Uh-oh. His
Okay.
phone is acting up. I don't know.
Okay, I get it.
You can keep asking. We'll see if he can get back.
I know you, Amanda. I know you're gonna give it to him. He said blah blah blah. He want to know if you. but
No, Vincent, keep going. Maybe he can hear.
it's that at a point where you want to like how often do you have to bite your tongue pretty much not to say anything about his story, how you know what you know, what you know, what you know. How do you stay unbiased about the stories that you run across? And it's like you just report it and let it go. And I'd be in the house, be like, I know damn well this is, but I just want to know how do you? I guess that's what you do. You're a reporter.
How do you stay unbiased?
How do you stay unbiased with what you do sometimes? It's between us and ain't nobody else out here. It's just us, right?
Yeah.
Ain't nobody else.
Honey, can you hear us? Honey, can you hear us?
You can't hear anything.
Can't hear.
Oh no.
Oh, and he's not muted. That's so weird.
That's a great question.
I know.
Okay, well, until he figures out his sound,
Amanda,
Emily,
write that down and
write
give
it down
it to
and
him.
give it to
I
him.
did.
My phone
I wrote
number.
it down.
You call me.
Emily, I've got one for you.
Sure.
We've talked about us and how we have dealt with being parents of biracial children and the thought of being parents to biracial children. But how have you dealt with it growing up biracial? You know, we hinted on, you know, the not black enough, not white enough, but what kind of issues did you run into growing up that the normal black child or the normal white child would not have dealt with?
Gosh.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a good question for another session. I will touch on it. Kind of worms that would take an entire session, I think.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah, I mean, I think
We can go to Uncooked downtown and have some wine and talk about it.
Yeah, I guess the short answer is there was a lot of issues for me. You know, just not feeling like I belonged anywhere. I mean, I grew up in South Dakota. It's predominantly Caucasian.
Yeah.
And my biological father was absent. So, he's African American. My mother's white. So here I was, this child of color, and I was actually, a lot darker when I was younger than I am now, which is kind of interesting. I don't know, but I was really quite dark. And my entire family was white. My dad, who adopted me, my brother and sister's dad adopted me. He's white, and my mom's white. My brother and sister are white. So I was kind of in a sea of white people. And my family, my extended family, was not very accepting initially, but they did come around. But going to school there, I was called, the N-word a lot, and especially elementary school was particularly difficult.
Wow.
And my mom was amazingly supportive. She would raise, what? She would get ugly when people messed with her kid. She'd go in there and have a fit. But I really wished I had a Black role model in my life, that someone who related and said, I have been called that. I know how you feel. Now, my mom, I'm not taking anything from her. She was incredible, but I wish my father would have been present at that time. He is present now. We met actually when I was 32, and he's incredible. Really, really proud of him. He's an amazing person. So it's a good success story, and things can be salvaged, and I'm really happy about that. I'm happy I have him now, and I can talk to him about things now. And we've had so many conversations, especially over the last few months, about Black Lives Matter. And I've called him and said, I've got white family members who've posted things that are just highly offensive, that I never knew they were like that. I can't believe they said that. It's so offensive to me, and it makes me feel like they don't even remember that I exist or that I'm a part of their family. And just talking with him, and also I've talked with my mom about that. She's, again, rose up and stood up for me with her relatives who've stepped out of line. So yeah, it's a lot of issues, but I think ultimately, as I've gotten older, I feel more accepted now than I did when I was younger by the Black community, which has been really freeing for me. When I was younger, I got called like Oreo and high yellow and some of those things you were talking about, Julia.
Yeah.
But now that I'm getting older, I don't know what's changed, maybe just the maturity level of everybody involved, but I feel really embraced by the Black community, particularly here in Raleigh, and I've never been made to feel like I don't belong. And of course by the white community too, just really by the community in general, especially the theater community. And so that's been really healing for me, and I definitely feel like I belong. And so that's kind of the good part of that. I could go on a lot more about those experiences, but I definitely think that would be good for another session. And
Absolutely.
It would be great to have a session, I think, on biracial children and biracial people and our experiences. And I'm sure you guys would have some interesting perspectives on that, just seeing, your kids grow up that way.
I would love to see if maybe Asia would enjoy joining in on one of those, just so she can kind of give that, because she knows she doesn't have any biracial friends. It's either white or Black, and it's she's right in the middle of everything. So
she connects with.
Yeah. I know exactly how she feels. I don't think, I'm trying to think if I have any biracial. I don't think that I don't know that I have any biracial.
Does she have any issue?
Nobody's coming to mind right now. I guess I do have one, Kalani. But yeah, I have very few as well. So I know how she feels, and I think that'll be a great question.
Yeah.
So
for my extended my family, see, I have family in Jersey where my aunts migrated to. But this is another subject for another day too. But it's like I have Korean, I have Hispanic, I have Puerto Rican,
Indian.
It's like, I mean, this is like my close-knit family.
Yeah. Because
my aunts migrated to Jersey and New York and different parts, but they all were right here in Raleigh, in Fuquay, in Apex. And at that time, then they go up north and they start this whole, it's like we are all. It's just a human race.
Yeah,
It's just a human race.
but you got to fit in.
But it's like,
Somewhere, yeah.
but you're gonna find your place in the house.
Yeah.
You will find your place in the house.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, Lauren.
hey, Lauren.
Hi, Lauren. So,
Oh, she's like, time to stop talking.
so I think we're ready to wrap it up here. I wanted to thank
Guys hear me
everyone.
now?
You all have been so amazing, and I really enjoyed moderating this conversation. You guys are incredible.
Thank you, Emily. You did a great job.
Here.
Thanks to all of you. Thank you, Ken and Amanda and Julia and Vincent and Emily for moderating. Good luck in Divas on
Thank
Thursday. Very exciting. So everybody get into Divas. It's Thursday night, right? Raleigh-Durham here?
Thursday night at 7:30 on Facebook Live via the RLT Divas webpage.
Oh, awesome.
And Ken, we will see you on the news. I'm glad you're not covering hurricanes.
Yeah.
I think you've had enough danger the past few months.
I know.
But thank you all. And Emily, I told you this afternoon when we were talking, I think the more we have these conversations, it's just so layered and layered and layered, the more conversations there are to have. So hopefully we'll have a conversation about biracial and I don't want to say mixed because that's not even the word, but biracial children.
Biracial children, yeah.
Because I think that's definitely a conversation to be had. So thank you for that. And everyone stay safe and healthy. And Thursday night, we have another event. I don't want to take away from Divas, so I want everybody to watch Divas. Our event, you can watch anytime, so it's recorded. It'll live on Facebook. But we'll be talking about live streaming. And if you're interested in live streaming, with Mickey Stith, who's live streaming Twitter. So definitely tune in for that or come in after Divas.
Hey, where you at?
Okay.
All right, so can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, what in the world?
Show's over, kid. Show's
Yeah.
over.
Oh my, come on!
All right, Ken.
That's like my worst dream as a reporter. And like I overslept and missed my entire shift.
You did.
Amanda, go home and get your husband.
I know, right?
I'm going to give Ken the last. Ken, do you have anything to wrap up the conversation?
Vincent had a good question for him.
Yes.
Vincent's
What was
question
so funny
was
was that
like,
I was listening and I was hearing you guys, but you guys couldn't hear me, and I'm like, you guys are laughing and having a good time. I'm like, I want in on that conversation.
okay, here, and I'm going to give you the question that Vincent has, and you have a minute to answer. His question was, if you're doing stories, is there a time that you really think like you have to bite your tongue?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. That's a given. But again, it's part of being a journalist and having to swallow that or bite your tongue, really. Because one, you want to keep your job, and two, I think it's so important that you have to recognize that other young journalists are watching, and even though you may not think of yourself as a mentor, when people see you and how you operate, that's important. So when I think of those instances where I have to bite my tongue, I think it's important to do it because it again, I go back to this whole idea of integrity. And as a journalist, you have to bring that level of integrity to the table. And if I don't, then I'm not doing the job that I was trained to do.
Right, gotcha.
Good answer.
Good answer. That boy good. That boy good.
Did I hear that you guys were in the Caribbean?
No, that was his question.
That was my question.
That was Vincent's question.
Gotcha. Excellent. Man, so I can't believe I missed so much of this conversation. My phone died.
You'll have to watch the recording tomorrow.
There you go.
Well, it's an amazing panel, and like I said, there's more conversations to be had. And I'm such a fan, Ken. You know that. So I'll be watching. You're one of the good ones. I think in journalism, like every profession, there's those journalists you admire that approach it with integrity, and then there's the others. And you're one of them.
Very well put.
Yes.
Way to go,
Because
Lauren.
Lauren is a good journalist.
Not a bad, but we need good journalists. We need to set a good example. Thank you all again. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you, Emily, for moderating.
You're welcome.
Way to go, Emily.
Yay.
I'm looking forward to seeing all you guys in person.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I miss hugs. I miss everyone.
No, right? Yes.
Well, there's
Yes.
a whole campaign now. Mask up so we can have the curtain up. So mask up,
Yep.
curtain up so we can get back
I like
to
that.
Yes.
Mask up, curtain up.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
I love
Virtual
that.
theater
That's
is still
great.
going on.
Yes.
Very catchy.
Thank you all
was
so
good.
much. Amanda, safe travels. And I will hope
Thank you.
soon. Thanks so much, guys.
Good to meet you
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. Nice to
Thank
see
you.
Good to
you.
meet you, Amanda.
Night. My husband says bye.
Bye, Chris.
See you, Chris.
Bye.